I vanished overnight and they didn't even see it coming. No big fight, no warning, just a note and an empty room. And to this day, my family still spins their own version of what happened, that I was selfish, that I abandoned them, that I walked away from my responsibilities. But the truth is much simpler. I left because I finally realized I was being used. My name is Rachel. I'm 28 years old and I work as a night shift nurse at a long-term care facility in Seattle. It's not glamorous, but I love what I do. My patients are mostly elderly and sometimes they just need someone to listen to care to be present. That's what I do. That's who I am. About a year ago, I went through a painful divorce. We'd been married young, rushed into it thinking we knew everything only to discover we were strangers in all the ways that mattered. He was emotionally distant. I was constantly tired. We argued more than we talked, and eventually it all collapsed. After the divorce, I moved back in with my mother temporarily. It was supposed to be for a few months, just long enough to get back on my feet, build up some savings, and figure out my next step. My mom lived in the same small house I grew up in. Cozy, a little worn down, but familiar. Safe in a way. At first, everything felt manageable. I worked long shifts, saved money, stayed quiet. My mom was supportive in her own distant way. We didn't talk much, but she didn't ask questions either. That was fine by me. I needed space to breathe. Then came Kyle. Kyle is my older brother. He's 35, divorced, and, well, let's just say life hasn't exactly humbled him. He was always the golden child. Handsome, charming, smart in a careless sort of way. When we were kids, he could do no wrong, even when he did. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one. The helper, the peacekeeper. Kyle had been living in Portland with his wife and 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 2, until the marriage fell apart. I didn't know all the details, just bits and pieces. Something about money problems, his failed business, arguments. And then one day he just showed up at Mom's house with 3 sleepy kids in the backseat of his car and a trailer full of boxes. I found out he was moving in the same way everyone else did by seeing him standing in the driveway. My mom didn't ask me. She didn't even mention it, just expected me to adapt, like always. The first few days were chaotic. Kids running up and down the hallway, toys scattered across the living room, screaming, laughing, crying. Kyle disappeared for hours at a time. Mom tried to keep things together, cooking more than usual, doing laundry late at night. And I kept my head down. Told myself it wasn't my problem, that I could still keep my boundaries. But the thing about living in a small house with 5 other people, 3 of them under the age of 8, is that boundaries disappear real fast. I'd come home from a 13-hour shift to find one of the kids asleep in my bed, cartoons blaring on the TV, empty juice boxes on the floor. My scrubs would be wrinkled from someone digging through my laundry. The bathroom was never clean. Someone was always crying. Still, I said nothing. I thought if I didn't complain, they'd respect my space. I thought wrong. It started with little comments. "You're so good with kids," Rachel mom said one morning as I sipped cold coffee after a double shift. "They calm down when you're around," she added with a hopeful smile. Kyle chimed in, "You've got the nurse gene, natural caretaker." I didn't answer. Then the requests came. "Can you pick up Ava from preschool? I'm running late. Can you just keep an eye on them while I go out for a bit? I know it's your day off, but they've been driving me crazy. Just an hour, please." Each time I said yes. Reluctantly, but still. I said yes. And every yes made it harder to say no. They started assuming, expecting, depending. And all the while, Kyle sat on the couch scrolling on his phone, telling everyone he was job hunting, which looked a lot like watching YouTube videos and playing games while the kids climbed on the furniture and Mom tried to cook with a toddler clinging to her leg. I started feeling trapped, like I was slowly becoming a third parent in a house that wasn't mine for children that weren't mine in a situation I didn't choose. I told myself it was temporary, that Kyle would get it together, that Mom would step up, that things would settle. But they didn't. They got worse. One night, I came home just after midnight. My feet were sore. My back ached. I smelled like bleach and hospital soap. I walked into the kitchen and found the lights on. The sink was full of dishes. Two of the kids were still awake, sitting on the floor eating cereal out of the box. No adult in sight. I asked them where Dad was. They shrugged. I found Kyle asleep in the guest room door, wide open, snoring like a chainsaw. I woke him up. He blinked at me, groggy, annoyed. "What's your problem?" "Your kids are awake. Alone. It's almost 1 a.m. He rubbed his eyes. "So, they're fine." I walked out. That was the night something inside me shifted. The exhaustion turned to anger. The guilt turned to clarity. I was being used. Not accidentally, not unintentionally, but knowingly. They saw me as free labor, a built-in babysitter, a second mother who didn't even get a thank you. The worst part? They thought I would just keep doing it. They thought I had nowhere else to go. They were wrong, and I was about to prove it. To understand why it was so easy for my family to overlook me, you have to understand how things have always been. Growing up, Kyle was the star. The firstborn, the son, the one with the big smile and bigger dreams. My mom adored him. My dad, before he passed, used to call him our future CEO. He was the kind of kid who could charm his way out of anything. Bad grades. The teacher didn't like him, caught lying. Just a misunderstanding. Broke something. Must have been my fault. Me. I was the quiet one, the rule follower, the helper. I was the kid who stayed up late making flashcards, who volunteered to do the dishes, who got overlooked because I didn't make waves. My parents loved me, I think, but they expected me to handle things, to be okay on my own, to not need anything. So I didn't ask for much. I studied, I got into nursing school, I worked nights at a diner to help pay for tuition. I moved out at 21 and didn't come back until the divorce. And even then, moving back in wasn't about comfort. It was about survival. The divorce had drained me emotionally, financially, and physically. We'd been married for 4 years, and by the end, we barely spoke. When it ended, I left everything. The apartment, the furniture, the plans we'd made. I walked out with a few boxes and my nursing license. Moving back in with Mom felt like defeat, but she welcomed me, said it was temporary, and I believed her. I believed her when she said Kyle wouldn't stay long either, that he just needed to regroup, that the kids wouldn't be my responsibility. At first, it felt like we were all just surviving under one roof, but slowly the roles solidified. Mom became the enabler, Kyle the victim, and me the unpaid nanny. Mom loved to say things like, "You're so mature," or "You've always been the strong one." But what she really meant was, "You can handle it, so you will." Kyle never once apologized for dumping his kids in my lap. He never said thank you. He just expected, assumed, walked out the door with a shrug and came back hours later like nothing had happened. And the kids, they weren't the problem. They were sweet, confused, loud, loving, wild. They missed their mom. They didn't understand why Dad was always tired or angry or distracted. They didn't know why Aunt Rachel looked so sad all the time. I didn't blame them, but I also didn't choose them. And that's what my family refused to understand. They treated me like a built-in solution. Like, because I wasn't married, because I didn't have children of my own, I somehow owed my life to helping Kyle fix his. Mom started making passive comments at dinner. "It's so hard for him, raising 3 kids alone. He's doing his best. You're so good with them. Maybe this is what you were meant for." I wanted to scream. I wanted to say I didn't ruin his marriage. I didn't bring 3 children into a mess. I didn't make those choices. But instead, I nodded, cleaned up the plates, took the kids upstairs, gave them baths, read bedtime stories, pretended this was normal. Every time I said nothing, it got worse. Every time I agreed to help out, the help became permanent. And every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone disappearing. I had to get out. Not just from the house, but from the pattern. Because this wasn't about Kyle's kids. It was about my family's belief that I would never say no. They had spent a lifetime training me to believe my needs came second, that I was only valuable when I was useful. And for most of my life, I believed them. Until now. It started with a bowl of soup. That sounds small, I know. But sometimes the last straw isn't some explosive event. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment when you realize how little you matter to the people who claim to love you. It was a rainy Thursday night. I had just come off a 12-hour shift that turned into 13 when a patient coded during handoff. I stayed. I helped resuscitate. I called the family. I held the hand of a crying daughter while she said goodbye to her father over a Zoom call. By the time I got home, I was running on fumes. The house was loud when I stepped in. Cartoons on full volume. Toys scattered across the floor. The faint smell of mac and cheese in the air. I wanted silence. Just a hot shower and 10 minutes alone. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and found Mom standing over the stove ladling soup into bowls. Kyle was sitting at the table scrolling through his phone while two of the kids argued over a toy car. The youngest was on the floor crying. "Oh, good, you're home," Mom said, not looking up. I nodded, too tired to respond. "I made extra," she added, motioning to the pot of soup. "Can you feed the baby? I need to finish folding laundry." I blinked. My scrubs were damp from the rain. My feet hurt. My hands smelled like hand sanitizer. And she wanted me to feed Kyle's 2-year-old. I turned to Kyle. He didn't even glance at me, just kept scrolling. "Can't he do it?" I asked. Kyle finally looked up, blinking like I'd spoken a foreign language. "I just sat down," he said. I stared at him for a second. Then I looked at Mom. "You just walked in," she said. "It wouldn't kill you to help." It was a moment. One of those moments where everything slows down and you see it all clearly. The years of taking on more than I should. The endless cycle of guilt and obligation. The way they both spoke like I owed them something. Like my exhaustion didn't count. I didn't say anything. I just walked to my room and closed the door. Later that night, I sat on my bed and started making a list. Things I needed to do. Things I needed to take. Where I could go. What I could afford. I opened my budget spreadsheet and looked at my savings. It wasn't a lot, but maybe it was enough. The next morning, Mom knocked on my door. "I need to talk to you," she said. I opened the door a crack. She stepped inside like she owned the space. "We need to figure something out," she said. "Kyle needs more help. You've been distant lately." I waited. "He's looking for work, but in the meantime, the kids need stability," she continued. "You're here, you have a flexible schedule, and you're so good with them." There it was, the ask, wrapped in compliments and coated in guilt. "I don't have a flexible schedule," I said. "I work nights, 12-hour shifts. But you're home during the day," she countered. "To sleep." She waved a hand dismissive. "You can nap later. Right now, family comes first." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "You're serious," I said. She nodded. "This is your family." I looked her in the eyes and said, "No, this is your mess. Kyle's mess. I didn't create it, and I won't clean it up." She stiffened. "You've changed, Rachel." "No," I said. "I'm just tired of pretending I haven't." She walked out without another word. That night, Kyle cornered me in the hallway. "What's your problem?" he asked. I didn't answer. "You're living here rent-free," he said. "At least you could do is pull your weight." "I pay for my food," I said. "I clean up after myself. I take care of your kids more than you do." "You think you're better than us?" he snapped. I stepped past him. "You just wait," he muttered. I didn't ask what he meant. I already knew. Later that week, I came home to find a printed spreadsheet taped to the fridge. It was a household contribution schedule. My name was listed 3 times. Pickup from school, dinner preparation, bedtime routine. I didn't speak to anyone that night. I just walked to my room, closed the door, and texted my coworker, Ellie. Is that roommate offer still open? She responded within seconds. Still looking. Want to come by this weekend? I stared at the message, then typed yes. And just like that, everything shifted. It wasn't just a decision, it was a lifeline. Ellie lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment across town near the hospital. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, not filled with expectations I never agreed to. When I visited that Saturday, she showed me the room. Simple, unfurnished, but it had a window, a closet, and a door I could close without feeling guilty. I told her I wanted it. She said I could move in any time. The moment I said yes, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. Of course, I didn't tell my family right away. I knew how they'd react. They'd try to stop me, guilt me, raise my rent, or worse, threaten to cut me off completely. So I did what I'd learned to do in a house full of chaos. I kept quiet and started preparing. Each night after work, I packed a little. Just the essentials: clothes, shoes, my nursing gear, personal documents. I tucked everything neatly into boxes and bags, loading them into my car when no one was watching. I covered them with a blanket in the trunk just in case. I also took pictures of my room, how it looked, what I owned, serial numbers for electronics, receipts for my laptop, my watch, my headset. Not because I expected a fight, but because I'd learned the hard way to expect anything. And I wrote a letter. A formal 30-day notice, signed and dated, stating I was leaving. Not asking permission, just informing. One morning before my shift, I slid the envelope under my mom's bedroom door. When I got home that evening, they were waiting. Kyle was on the couch. Mom stood by the door. Her face was pale, like she hadn't slept. "What is this?" she asked, holding the letter. "It's my notice," I said, calmly. "I'm moving out." "You're joking," Kyle said. "I'm not," I replied. "You can't just leave," Mom said, her voice rising. "What about the kids? What about Kyle?" I took a deep breath. "They're not my responsibility. They're your family," she snapped. "And I'm an adult who never agreed to raise someone else's children." Kyle stood up, then pacing like a caged animal. "You're so ungrateful," he spat. "We let you stay here. We gave you everything after your divorce." "You gave me a roof," I said, which I appreciated, "but that doesn't give you the right to demand everything else from me." "You're being dramatic," Mom added. "This is just a rough patch." "No," I said, voice steady. "It's a pattern." She started crying. That surprised me. Not the tears, but the suddenness. She sat on the arm of the couch, face in her hands, shaking her head like I'd betrayed her. "How can you do this to us?" she sobbed. "To your brother. To the children." I didn't answer. I'd already said it 100 times in my head. None of this should have been mine to carry, and I was done pretending otherwise. Kyle didn't cry. He just got mean. "Fine," he said, grabbing his phone. "Go, but don't expect to be part of their lives later. Don't come crawling back when you realize how selfish you've been." "I won't," I said. That made him angrier. He muttered something under his breath, something I couldn't hear but didn't bother asking him to repeat. The days that followed were silent, cold. Mom barely spoke to me. Kyle avoided me. The kids sensed something but didn't know what. One evening, the 5-year-old Noah walked into my room while I was folding clothes. He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Are you going away?" he asked. I knelt beside him. "I am," I said. "But not because of you, okay? You're wonderful." He looked down. "Dad says you don't like us." My throat tightened. "I do like you," I said. "Very much. I just need to go live somewhere else. Adults need their own space too." He didn't seem to understand, but he nodded, then wrapped his arms around my neck. It took everything I had not to cry. On moving day, Ellie showed up early with her car. We moved quickly. I didn't want a scene. I thought if we were quiet, we could avoid the worst of it. But nothing in that house ever stayed quiet. I was hauling the last box out to the car when I heard the shuffle of slippers behind me. My mother. She stood in the doorway in her robe arms crossed, face flushed with emotion. "You're really doing this?" she asked. "I have to. What about Noah? He loves you." "I'm not abandoning him," I said. "But I can't stay here and keep pretending this is okay." She stepped closer. "We need you." I nodded. "I know, but I need me too." Kyle came out next. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, then at the car, then back at me. "I hope you feel good about this," he said finally. "I don't," I replied. "But it's still the right thing." He shook his head. "You'll regret it." I didn't respond. Ellie loaded the last box into the trunk. I turned to face the house one more time. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place I'd survived. Without another word, I got in the car and left. Moving in with Ellie felt like stepping into another life. Her apartment was small, but it was warm, peaceful. We spent the first night on the couch watching TV and eating frozen pizza. It wasn't much, but it felt like freedom. For the first time in months, I slept without headphones. There were no crying toddlers, no slammed doors, no guilt waiting for me in the kitchen. The next morning, I woke up early out of habit and sat by the window with my coffee. The sun was just rising, and for once, I didn't feel like I had to brace for anything. I just existed, quietly, without being needed. But peace doesn't mean silence. By noon, my phone was already buzzing. Messages, missed calls, voicemails, all from my mother. "Please call me back." "Kyle is furious. The kids are confused. They miss you." Then came the messages from extended family. Aunts, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had something to say. "How could you walk out like that? Your mom gave you everything, and this is how you repay her. Selfish doesn't even begin to describe you." And then Kyle. He didn't text me directly. No, he took to social media. A photo of his 3 kids eating breakfast captioned, "Doing my best." Some people run from family when it gets hard. I choose to stay and fight. Another one, a few hours later. "Being a single dad is hard, especially when the people who could help turn their backs on you." He didn't tag me, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew. I blocked him. I blocked Mom, too. I knew they'd twist the story, paint themselves as the victims, make me the villain. That was always the way things worked in my family. Whoever cried first got the sympathy. Whoever left first got the blame. A few days passed. Work helped distract me. Ellie was kind, didn't pry, didn't push. She made space for me both physically and emotionally. I was grateful. But just as I started to feel normal again, something happened that pulled me right back. I realized I'd left behind a folder of important documents in my old room, my nursing license, tax paperwork, employment verification forms. I'd tucked it away in the bottom drawer of my desk, meaning to grab it on my last trip, but in the rush, I'd forgotten. I needed that folder. But the thought of going back filled me with dread. I told Ellie, and without hesitation, she offered to come with me. So did another coworker, Maria. "We'll keep it quick," Ellie said. "In and out, no drama." We drove over on a Sunday afternoon. I knocked on the door. For a moment, I hoped no one would answer. Then Amanda, Kyle's oldest, opened it. She stared at me confused. "Is Dad home?" I asked. "He's asleep." "Of course." We walked in anyway. I headed straight to my old room and froze in the doorway. It wasn't my room anymore. The walls had new posters. Toys were everywhere. My bed was covered in laundry. My desk had a changing pad on it, and the bottom drawer, the one with my documents, was open. Empty. My stomach dropped. Amanda appeared behind me eating a granola bar. "Oh," she said casually. "We moved some stuff around. Thought you weren't coming back." I turned to her. "Where are my papers?" She shrugged. "No idea. Maybe Mom has them." I didn't believe her. Not for a second. I opened my phone and pulled up the photos I'd taken of the desk, the drawer, the file folder, the timestamp, the contents. I turned the screen toward her. I have a record of everything that was here, I said. If it's missing, I'll file a police report. Her face changed instantly. Geez, okay, she muttered. No need to get all legal. She walked over to the closet, pulled out a shoebox, and tossed it on the bed. There, it's in there. Relax. Inside was the folder. I checked. Everything was intact. Ellie and Maria stood by the door watching. I thanked them, thanked Amanda, though I didn't mean it, and we walked out. As we reached the car, Mom pulled into the driveway. She got out, rushed toward me. You didn't say you were coming. I wasn't planning to stay, I replied. She looked at the folder in my hand, then at Ellie and Maria. You needed backup. No, I said calmly. I needed peace. She started crying again. You've cut yourself off from everyone, she said. From your family, from your niece and nephews. Don't you want to be part of their lives? I paused. I wanted to. I really did. But you didn't want me in their lives. You wanted me to carry their lives. And that's not love. Then Kyle came out, holding his youngest, glaring at me. Taking more stuff, he said bitterly. Just what's mine, he scoffed. Figures. I didn't respond. I didn't owe him anything. We got in the car and drove away, and this time I didn't look back. 6 months have passed since I left. The first few weeks were hard, not because I missed the house, but because of the silence that came after I blocked them all. I kept waiting for the guilt to set in, for the second guessing to creep back in during quiet mornings. But it never did. What I felt instead was clarity and relief. Ellie has become more than a roommate. She's become a kind of anchor. Someone who understands boundaries without me having to explain them. We each take care of our own things, but we also look out for each other in small, thoughtful ways. She leaves extra coffee when I'm coming off a night shift. I make sure the dishes are done before she gets home. It's balanced, equal, peaceful. It took time to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had been so used to living under emotional tension that calm felt suspicious at first. Like maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I should be helping someone, fixing something, carrying more than my share. But that feeling has slowly faded. I spend more time outside now. Walks around the neighborhood, trips to the park. Sometimes I bring a book and sit under a tree and just let time pass. I used to feel guilty about resting, like every moment had to be productive. Now I realize how tired I really was, how much of myself I had given away for free. One night, Ellie and I were watching a movie when she paused the screen and turned to me. Do you ever think they'll apologize? She asked. I didn't have to think about it. No, not because I didn't want them to, but because I knew them. In my family, apologies are reserved for outsiders, for neighbors, for strangers at the store. But inside the house, you were expected to forgive without one, to move on without closure, to swallow the pain and smile at dinner. Still, I do get updates. My cousin, one of the few who didn't take sides, keeps me informed gently without judgment. She says Kyle never got a job. He says he's still exploring options, but mostly he stays home, lets the kids run wild, and complains about being tired. My mom has aged 10 years in 6 months trying to hold everything together. She does daycare runs, cooks all the meals, and keeps the house from falling apart. The basement is unfinished. Turns out money ran out halfway through the renovation. Apparently, Mom dipped into her retirement savings to help Kyle, and now she's stretched thin. She still works part-time just to keep the bills paid. Kyle's ex-wife doesn't visit much. Too much bad blood, I guess. So Mom is now the default parent, the nurse, the cleaner, the cook, the emotional sponge. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks of me. I wonder if she realizes that I could have helped if she'd just asked, not demanded. If she had come to me with respect, not obligation. I'll never know. I'm not going to ask. A few weeks ago, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. It was from my mother. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside were 2 pages. The first was a plea. "I miss you," she wrote. "Your niece asks about you. The boys are growing so fast. I know things got heated. I know we said things we didn't mean. Please come by. Just for dinner. No expectations." It was the most human thing I'd heard from her in years. The second page, though, told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't an apology, it was a justification. We were under so much stress. Your brother didn't know how to ask for help. You've always been so capable. In other words, this is why we used you. I didn't write back. Maybe someday I will, but not now. Not until she stops confusing my silence with forgiveness. Not until she understands that being strong doesn't mean being exploited, that being family doesn't mean being sacrificed. The last time I saw them was the day I picked up my folder. I remember driving away and thinking I could have stayed. I could have slipped back into the role, smiled through it, carried the weight. But then would I still be there now, waking up exhausted, holding back tears, looking in the mirror and seeing someone who didn't recognize herself? Instead, I chose myself. And choosing myself wasn't easy. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was quiet. A slow removal of every rope that had been tied around me. Some nights I still hear their voices in my head. You're being selfish. You're overreacting. You're family. But I've learned to talk back to those voices, to remind myself that I am allowed to have boundaries, that love without respect isn't love, that family who refuses to see you as a person doesn't deserve your presence. Now my life isn't perfect. I still work too much. I still struggle to make ends meet. But everything I do now, I do by choice. No one guilts me into caregiving. No one expects me to fix their life. No one uses my compassion as leverage. I see my patients, and I give them the best care I can. And when I come home, no one is waiting with a new list of expectations. Just silence. Just peace. And me. Whole. Finally. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. Leaving the house. Cutting off contact. Turning my back on family. They don't ask with cruelty. They ask with confusion. With hesitation. Like they're trying to understand something they haven't lived through. I don't blame them. On paper, it does look harsh. My brother was struggling, my mother was overwhelmed, there were children involved. What kind of person walks away from that? But here's the thing no one ever talks about. There's a difference between helping and being used, between supporting someone and being sacrificed for them. And if I had stayed, if I had taken on the role they wanted me to fill, they never would have seen a reason to change. My brother would have kept leaning, my mother would have kept excusing, and I would have kept disappearing. Because I know myself. I've always been the one who figures it out. The one who volunteers first. The one who doesn't complain. The one who gives until she has nothing left. But when you're that person, long enough, people stop seeing you as someone who can help. They start seeing you as someone who should. And when you finally say no, they don't hear a boundary. They hear betrayal. That's what happened to me. I didn't break away because I stopped caring. I broke away because I cared too much and it was killing me. No one notices when you're drowning if you're the one holding everyone else above water. The most painful part of all this wasn't the shouting or the accusations or even the cold silence afterward. It was realizing that the people I'd done the most for were the least willing to consider that maybe I was tired too. They saw my strength and decided it meant I didn't need support. They saw my stability and decided I could carry more. They saw my quiet and decided it meant agreement. And that's what so many people misunderstand about family. Love is not a currency. It's not something you earn by suffering more than others. It's not something you prove by giving until you're empty. Real love includes choice, consent, respect. Real love doesn't punish you for having limits. My mother once told me family means being there for each other no matter what. But I've learned that family, true family, means not asking someone to destroy themselves just so you can feel more comfortable. I used to think love was about endurance, that the deeper your love, the more pain you were supposed to tolerate. But I've stopped believing that. Now I believe love includes saying no. I believe in love that respects when I'm at capacity. Love that checks in, not checks out. Love that doesn't guilt trip, doesn't manipulate, doesn't assume. That's the kind of love I want to give. That's the kind of love I want to receive. So when people ask me if I regret it, I tell them no. I don't regret leaving. I regret how long it took me to realize I could. I regret every night I sat awake wondering if I was the bad one for wanting a life that was mine. I regret every time I swallowed my frustration and called it maturity. Every time I thought silence was nobler than standing up for myself. But now I don't shrink. I don't apologize for making room in my own life. I don't carry shame for choosing peace over martyrdom. And if you're someone who's struggling in a family dynamic like mine, if you're the one who always gives and rarely receives, if you feel like your value is tied only to how much you can carry, this is what I want to say. You are not selfish for setting a boundary. You are not heartless for needing space. You are not wrong for choosing your own life. You're not abandoning your family when you walk away from dysfunction. You're choosing not to abandon yourself. And that is not betrayal. That is healing.